Throughout the brutal history of transatlantic slavery, the Caribbean stood as both a center of unimaginable suffering and a fierce battleground of black resistance. Enslaved Africans, forcibly transported across the Atlantic, were subjected to inhumane labor, violence, and dehumanization on sugar plantations and other local colonial enterprises. Yet, contrary to the myth of the passive slave, these men and women continuously resisted their conditions, sometimes subtly through work slowdowns and cultural retention, and other times through open rebellion. The Caribbean became a crucible of revolutionary resistance where African-descended people fought to reclaim their freedom and dignity. One of the earliest and most powerful examples of resistance occurred in Jamaica with the First Maroon War of 1728 through 1739. The Maroons were formerly enslaved Africans who escaped into the mountains and formed independent communities, led by leaders like Cudjo, Queen Nanny, and Samuel Sharp. These warriors fought guerrilla-style battles against British colonial forces for over a decade. Their intimate knowledge of the terrain and unbreakable spirit forced the British to sign a peace treaty in 1739, which granted them land and autonomy. Though controversial, this treaty was one of the first instances of a European empire formally recognizing the freedom of formerly enslaved Africans. The most significant and world-changing rebellion took place in Saint Domingue, present-day Haiti, beginning in 1791. Led by figures like Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Duty Boukman, the Haitians rose up against their French enslavers. The Haitian Revolution was a complex and bloody conflict that lasted over a decade, but by 1804, the revolutionaries had defeated Napoleon's forces. Haiti emerged as the first black republic in the world and the first nation to abolish slavery permanently. This revolution shook the colonial world to its core and inspired enslaved people and abolitionists throughout the Americas. Rebellions were not confined to large-scale wars. In Barbados, the Boussa Rebellion of 1816, named after an enslaved man believed to be a military leader, involved over 20,000 enslaved Africans who sought their rebellion. Although the rebellion was ultimately suppressed, it rattled the British colonial system and contributed to rising support for abolition. Similarly, in Guyana, the Demerara Revolt of 1823, led by figures like Quimina and his son Jack Gladstone, was a massive uprising of over 10,000 enslaved people. Though it ended in tragic executions and repression, it fueled British public debate and helped hasten the end of slavery. These revolts were acts of courageous defiance in the face of a violent system designed to break the human spirit. They were recognized, intentional, and deeply rooted in African traditions of resistance and warfare. Leaders used religious meetings, coded songs, and kinship networks to plan uprisings, and many rebellions were timed to coincide with moments of colonial vulnerability, such as wartime or political transition. The legacy of slave rebellions in the Caribbean reminds us that freedom was never given to the African diaspora, it was fought for. These rebellions challenged the moral foundation of slavery and exposed the lie that the system was unchallenged. They also paved the way for the eventual abolition of slavery across the British, French, Spanish, and Dutch Caribbean during the 19th century. For today's youth, especially those of African descent, the story of Caribbean slave rebellions is a powerful inheritance. It shows that even under the harshest conditions, people fought for justice, autonomy, and dignity. Remembering these revolts is not just about history. It is about reclaiming a narrative of strength, resistance, and liberation. To all the freedom fighters of the Caribbean, we proudly stand on your shoulders. For more information, please visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. There, you can support my OTSOG book series. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. You can also hit the super like button under this video and join my channel as a member. I love you all and make sure you catch the next video coming up.